All right, folks, the world of social media is a crazy and wild fantasy land today. I am joined by none other than resident cool person at CCBR, Carissa Vogel. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am living the dream. It is a joy to be on with you. It was really cool to connect with you at our staff retreat just over a month ago, time of recording, and chat a little bit about podcasting, a little bit about social media, and a little bit about yourself. And I thought it'd be super cool to get you on because I think that you're way cooler than the old people that I usually get on, like Jonathan and Blaze. And so um, this is cool. Yeah, let's dive into it and let's kind of I don't know, start from the beginning. I feel like for a lot of us old people, the idea of working full time in the pro life movement was something that kind of came on our radar as we started to get towards the end of our university degrees and get into that existential crisis of what am I supposed to do now kind of thing. Was that similar for you, or was this something that got on your mind and in your heart a little bit earlier?
No, so yeah, actually, I have wanted to work in the pro life movement since I was quite young, which I know is not a lot of people's stories, but from the time I was probably younger than 10, I have prayed that God would use me to help end abortion. And yeah, I was very open to working in the pro life movement. So this honestly is a dream come true for me.
That's awesome. Huh, you heard it here first, folks. We make dreams come true. Um, no, I so in that pursuit, then obviously you must have been somewhat familiar with the pro life movement, if it was an aspiration for both career and vocation, that kind of thing. Um, how did the pro life movement come on your radar? And was CCBR kind of one of your early points of contact, or did you really think that you were going to go a different direction, and then at some point later, CCBR kind of entered into the scene?
Yeah, so I actually didn't know about CCBR at all. So from the time I was quite young, I would kind of get involved in the pro life movement in any way that I could. So my church once a year would do Life Chain, and I would always get so excited for that Sunday, and I'd always go. And whenever a talk would come up on pro life events or any of those things, I would make sure that I could go. And when I got a bit older, that turned into following all of the pro life accounts on social media and just kind of getting my hands on whatever I could and get them on, learning apologetics, all those things. And then it wasn't actually until my older sister, Ellie, um, she went to Florida in, I think, 2019 or 2018 for our Florida project. And her whole life was kind of changed because of that week. And she decided to do an internship with CCBR that summer, which turned into team leading the next summer and getting involved. Um, but yeah, I didn't know about CCBR. And then when I saw that and when I saw how it changed her life and the effective work that CCBR was doing, I was like, oh yeah, sign me up, like right away. Um, I can actually do something about abortion. I can actually save babies. So then I signed up for the internship as well. Signed up for the 2020 internship, which never ended up happening, but then was able to do the internship in 2021. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. I just kind of,
That
yeah.
That's awesome. And I mean, praise God that you were able to follow that journey, because we are absolutely loving having you on staff and being the guru when it comes to social media. We'll dive into that in just a moment. I want to pick your brain a little bit more on that experience, especially uh, and I hope that I can do this delicately. I'm always curious in people's experience as they kind of mingle with the greater pro-life movement. I know a lot of people that do a lot of pro-life stuff through their church, and then they go to something that kind of brings people together, like a life chain event, like a 40 days for life event, like a conference, something like that. And they
Yeah.
go from almost exclusively very, very high overlap of like-minded people with regards to not only pro-life conviction, but also faith, also kind of culture, also everything else. And then they go to one of these bigger events, and it's a bit of an eye-opener with regards to how other people engage with the pro-life movement. When you guys would go to Life Chain, would you have your own little block and you guys would all kind of stay together as a church, or would you kind of mingle with the other people that showed up?
So I'm from a very small town. So we didn't have many other people actually show up. So it was mostly, yeah, it was mostly a peaceful, like just sort of protest. We get some people honking at us and stuff, but it was mostly just my church standing around a block holding some signs. So yeah, I didn't really
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Totally fair. Totally fair. I ask. I don't think it'd be a surprise to any of the viewers. So I personally, I'm Catholic, and I cannot help but laugh whenever I go into these meetings, and especially in Victoria where I grew up. The pro life movement was very predominantly Catholic, and there would be these questions leading up to a life chain of like, how do we get Protestant churches involved? How do we get more than just Catholics involved? And I would always start by saying like, hey, well, while we're handing out our signs, maybe we shouldn't hand out rosaries with them. Like that might turn somebody off, believe it or not, and just how wonderfully naive and innocent so many people within the pro-life movement are. I'm sure that you've been handed dozens of rosaries in your pro-life journeys and whatnot, and so that's neither here nor there. But I always find it interesting when people kind of enter into the greater world of pro-life engagement beyond their specific church network. And so going from there, so you applied to the internship. You did not go to Florida, correct, before you did the internship?
No, I was still in high school. So
Okay.
I applied to the Pro Life Week of Action, which
Okay.
happened right in March of 2020. So that didn't happen either.
Yeah, one of the last cutoffs. I was in Florida for Florida 2019, and obviously Florida was one of the hotbeds of the whole launch of COVID-19 and whatnot, and so that was an interesting starting point. So you do the internship in 2021. What was that like? Was that what you expected? Obviously, your sister Ellie had done an internship before, and so you probably had at least a theoretical idea as to how this was going to play out. What was your internship experience like?
It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I would say I was well prepared for it. My sister, yeah, had done it the 2 years previous, and I had also had a friend do it. And it was kind of cool because I'm naturally a very conflict avoidant person. I don't like to do anything that offends anybody, but I came into my internship and I felt like it was like the first job that I was like really good at. And I felt like I was well prepared. I knew what to expect, and I felt like I could do it, and I could change minds, and I could go out. And this was a job that, yeah, I felt like I had gifts for, and that God had prepared me for. And I also met some really cool people, who most of whom I actually live with now and work with now. The friends that I made during that internship. So overall, yeah, one of the best summers of my life, and definitely changed the trajectory of my life in a lot of ways. It was hard, in some ways, definitely stretched and grew me a lot. Um, but yeah, definitely one of the best summers.
That's awesome. And we'll probably cycle back to that at some point here. I want to dive from that kind of into your transition for staff. And so that's phenomenal that you were prepared going into an internship. You knew kind of what you were expecting. Was it similar transitioning towards staff? And the reason I ask is because I feel like a lot of people who go from our internships, I mean, you're doing outreach for like 90% of your time. You're doing some training, obviously, once a week or so, more heavily at the beginning of the program. But there's such a high focus on outreach and traveling and just the absolute blur of everything kind of fitting together. And then I know that for myself, when I went from being an intern to running the internship, and staff in general, it was a huge change of pace with regards to, you mean you guys don't just do activism all day, every day? Like there's actually some behind the scenes work that goes into this. Like, was that transition from intern to staff a little bit jarring for you, or what was that experience like going from boots on the ground, huge proportion of your day, to boots on the ground, a lesser proportion of your day, to be able to facilitate other people's boots getting on the ground?
Yeah, for sure. So when I first joined staff, I still did activism like a decent bit. I would go out probably 2 days a week, to go talk to people. So it wasn't such a huge transition, but it definitely is different. And people will ask you like, "Oh, why aren't you doing activism all the time?" And it's like, "Oh, yeah, there's tons of behind the scenes things that need to be done." For me, I think it was more of my natural gifts actually lie more in doing outreach than in office tasks. So, um, yeah, the internship, I felt very much in my element. I was like, yes, I can talk to people. I can do this. This is good. Joining staff, it was more of a step of this is what the babies need. Um, and I'm willing to do anything that's gonna save babies and whatever jobs that is, you can put me in. So that's not necessarily where my natural gifts lie, but I've learned a lot and grown a lot in there, and I've learned to really enjoy my job, um, and to realize that this is equipping other people to be able to do outreach, which is super valuable.
Absolutely. And I gotta ask, like, do you have any of those like tightrope kind of moments where because I speaking from my own experience, I feel like I had a somewhat similar transition into staff of like, just throw me wherever you need me, wherever the babies need me.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that's me like launching out onto the tightrope and I start walking and then I look down, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I was not anticipating to have this kind of position, this kind of influence, this kind of role within CCBR. I just want to be a humble postcarder, and here I am doing all of this incredibly vital and important work. Have you had any of those moments of like, oh my goodness, I am walking on the tightrope and there's an awful lot of air below me before the ground kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The first like few months that I was on staff, I kind of was a general assistant. So it wasn't so much of a crazy all of a sudden I was on a tightrope. I was just kind of doing anything that they needed done, which was a broad range of things. And then I jumped into team leading for the summer internship. But then right after the summer, I kind of jumped into a role that I didn't really know much about. And that, yeah, definitely one of those tightrope moments where I was like, wow, I don't know how I ended up here with all of this. And I don't feel equipped for the job, but at the same time, babies need me to do this and this is important. So I'm going to do it. But yeah, definitely I found myself in places where I'm like, wow, I guess God wants me here because I would not have foreseen myself being here right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure there's many more of those moments to come because I've been doing this for 11 years now, and I still have those moments all the time of like, oh wow. So that's super cool though, and phenomenal that you just got that huge yes to what am I needed for? How can I serve? How can I contribute? That kind of thing, which is phenomenal. And you've been doing such a great job of that within the realm of social media, which must be a task in and of itself. With all due respect to people like Michael Roy and Dan Delaney before him, and countless others who have looked after social media and have done an incredible job with very little support from people like me who have zero idea what is happening for social media, let alone being able to respond to requests that get sent in for photos or testimonies or whatever else. Um, you get offered the opportunity to be kind of the top dog when it comes to managing CSPR's social media. Did, in the briefing, was it accurate how little investment we have often put and how little priority we've often put towards social media? Did you know the mountain that was before you for building up what is now an incredible social media presence, or were you kind of stepping in assuming that a group that proclaimed to have 30 people under the age of 30 working would have a slightly different kind of social media presence?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, definitely, we did not have the social media presence that I think an organization of our size maybe should have. So jumping in, I was kind of I didn't know anything about social media really, to be completely honest. Like I have social media. I have no idea how. Like I've never been a person who posts on social media or who like engages with it really. Um, but I think the longer I've been doing it, the more I've been realizing how much you can do on social media and how important it actually is. And I'm like, wow, if we had put this effort in a while ago, like we could, all the things that we could have done. So yeah, it's been really fun to build that up though. And to come from where we were to where we kind of are now and to make visions for the future of where we can be. Because there's a lot that you can do when it comes to social media.
So much that can be done, and again, I don't know if Michael or Dan or anybody else listens. This is not on you guys at all. This is absolutely on the culture of staff, focusing on doing 1,000 choice changes a year and not taking a single picture at times, and that kind of thing. And so, absolutely not on our past social media coordinators. But maybe talk a little bit about the experience of doing social media and some of the experiences that you've had interacting with people or learning through what you have posted, what you're seeing other people posting. I feel like we could do an entire episode on social media itself, which we're not going to do now because this is more about you and who you are and kind of the behind the scenes of CCBR. But are there cool experiences that have stood out that are cherished and help you appreciate just how valuable social media is? I mean, obviously, there's a tremendous number of people who are on social media, but I feel like at times it might be difficult to correlate investment in social media to investment on a street corner or on a doorstep. And so, what kind of experiences have you had to demonstrate the tremendous value of social media?
Yeah. So a couple of experiences come to mind. And I would say, like, the point of our social media, how I see it at least, is not necessarily to be what our street outreach is. Like, our street outreach is what we do here at CCBR, right? Like, that's how we change minds and save lives. Um, Primarily, I see our social media as encouragement for our supporters and for those in the pro life movement, for us to kind of share encouraging stories from the streets and just what is happening and how babies are being saved. But with that comes the secondary benefit of people being able to find us on social media and reach out for help and those sorts of things. So they definitely go together. So I've had a couple of experiences actually recently that have shown me, like, oh wow, yeah, it is actually important to have a presence on social media and that people can see who CCBR is and reach out for help. So about a year ago, there was a woman who kind of just found CCBR through a video that had been posted. And it was a video of our colleague Vanessa talking about abortion, just like a random video, and that led her to our website where she kind of took a look around, and she was pregnant and in a hard situation. She had abortion pills at home ready to take, and she reached out to CCBR, called our number, and asked to speak with my colleague Vanessa. And anyway, through a series of events, decided to continue with the pregnancy. And I actually was able to go with my colleague Vanessa yesterday to go visit her little baby Sierra, who was saved. So it's just kind of was a cool moment for me because she found us initially through a random video that was posted, and I was like, oh wow, it's really cool the impact that um, just having a social media presence can have, and that is the reason that she reached out to us for help. So that's one cool story that happened recently.
That's so cool, and obviously that makes so many hours of investment worth it. In any case, whether that happens on social media or on the street, and I'm sure that with all the vitriol that you need to witness on social media, and the permanent record that goes along with it as well, right? That I'm sure there's a little bit of difference. A lot of the stuff that gets said on social media might get said out the window of a car as somebody drives by us, but the permanent record kind of aspect, I'm sure, is a little bit daunting. I'm not going to dive straight into that because I feel like that's a little bit depressing, and I want to put don't want to put too much of a damper on the conversation. But I'm curious if you ever go through the comment section and just kind of chuckle. If you see the notifications and you pop it open, you're like, huh, there's creativity there. That is not quite what I thought that was going to go for. Like, do you ever chuckle at the experience, whether it's from pro lifers, well-meaning contributions, or whether it's from abortion advocates that might not fully understand or might not fully articulate their worldview? Do you ever get any kind of personal satisfaction, personal kind of chuckles out of managing what
Oh
goes
yeah.
up and what gets commented on social media?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of pro choicers who regularly comment just bizarre things. And I usually just leave it alone because I'm like, whatever, you're helping our algorithm. But yeah, they are creative at times. They,
Yeah.
um, they like to comment things about. They commented a couple times that it's middle-aged bearded males that run our account, and that one makes me laugh because I'm just sitting behind the computer, like, yeah, okay.
Oh, we'll have to get you one of those costume sets for the next live session that you join for, something like that, so that you can live up to the expectation. That's hilarious. It makes me think of we were doing a project at the University of Lethbridge a number of years ago, and one of the protesters had misspelt the word propaganda. Um, and had written pro panda, had missed like the middle one or two syllables, and pro panda. And Caleb, some of the listeners would know Caleb from Lethbridge, who is quick witted and whatnot, and contributes to our Illuminati chat very frequently. Went over it, and his sign read, I think it was, I don't support pro panda. And Caleb ran this guy on for like 10-15 minutes of like just trying to understand what this man's issue was with somebody being pro panda, and why we shouldn't be supportive of pandas and whatnot. And it took him ages to figure out what he was getting at, and then finally realized that he had a typo on his sign. I'm sure that you see some fairly egregious typos and grammatical errors coming from the comment section as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha. To change gears a little bit, and if I we'll re-record if I'm not allowed to announce this, but I know that you have a change of scenery coming up in a couple months here with regards to your housing situation, and so you're not worried about getting kicked out by your roommates right now, and so I'm not going to ask you to dish entirely on what your roommates are like, but you alluded to earlier, you live and you work with a number of CCBR staff members and volunteers, that kind of thing. What is that like? Like, pull back the curtain a little bit, maybe not too much, but pull back the curtain a little bit on what it's like to live with the incredible young women that we have working primarily in our Mississauga office, and what that experience has been like.
Yeah. So it's actually pretty amazing because a lot of the girls I live with were already my friends before I worked for CCBR. And when I first moved here, I didn't live with them. I lived with some other girls who don't work for CCBR, but slowly all my best friends just kind of joined staff with CCBR and moved in with me. So it's been really cool how they've all just moved into my house, and now we just have a whole house full of girls that work for CCBR. Um, it's a lot of fun, and it's really fun to live with people who understand the work and who are just as invested in the work as you are. Sometimes we have to make rules in the evening. Okay, no more talking about work. Because we're like, all right, we need to take a break from work because we get all inspired and we start talking about all the things we want to do. But in general, it's really encouraging. They understand you, and they're my best friends, whether or not I would work with them. So it's just really fun to be able to do life with them. We carpool back and from the office together. So
That's awesome, and I'm glad that works out, because I hear a lot of people say never meet your heroes and never live with your friends, kind of thing, because they cease to be your heroes and they cease to be your friends. And so I'm glad that's working out so far. I got to ask, are you the first person into the carpool car? Or are you the person that's getting honked at to run and jump into the backseat of the car so that you guys can get there on time?
I would definitely be the person that would be honked at, unfortunately. I am not the first
Gotcha.
in the car.
Gotcha. There's always somebody, that's totally fair. And I got to ask as well. So I very much appreciate the parameters put around shop talk into the evenings. Do you find that like the principles from work and apologetics at times seep into your daily life, if I dare ask, of when it comes to are we common ground analogy questioning our grocery shopping list, and are we, when you're not shop talking, you're playing board games and trying to negotiate deals of Settlers of Catan? Or are you guys able to kind of put the work and its principles behind it and just kind of enjoy life, sort of thing?
I mean, I think the principles follow you wherever you go in life, honestly. Um, yeah, we definitely do that, but I think it's just so natural to our conversations now that we don't even notice that we're using all of the principles that we use. It's funny because the more I've introduced a lot of people in my life to CCBR now, and which is really fun, but it has its consequences. because my brother, he came to a pro-life week of action, and I remember talking to him about something on the way home and him looking at me and saying, "Did you just common ground analogy question me?" And I was like, "Oh shoot, all my secrets are gone now that you know about them." But I think for us, it just happens so naturally that we don't get each other in trouble for it. We just accept it and do it right back.
Gotcha. That works. I know that when my wife and I got married, we had to agree not to common ground analogy question each other too often because it just comes across like, no, you don't need to build rapport with me. We're literally married. You can say things as they are in a charitable way, but well, you don't need to attempt to build rapport and common ground before you tell me what you think, kind of thing. And so, no, I'm glad that works out.
You probably
And
skip the common ground part sometimes.
fair enough. As long as the question stays in there and it doesn't just become analogies and statements,
Oh yeah.
refutations and resolutions, as we call it out here. Um, that's totally fair. And so, maybe the last couple of questions is kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit more on your life. And so let's say that you get a couple days off. Not something devastating or whatever, but the office is closed. You get a couple days off, and what does a couple days off in the life of Karissa look like? Or hopefully, it's not too much fighting you away from your keyboard and trying to work when work isn't on, anyways. But like, presuming that you're not working, what does life look like? What are you gearing towards? What are you looking forward to on a couple days off?
Oh man. Um, Days off usually look like visiting people that
Yeah.
I love. So I live almost 2 hours from my parents and about 2.5 hours away from my fiance. So honestly, if I get a day off, I'm probably going to visit them. Right now, days off would look like planning my wedding, probably.
Okay. Okay. Totally fair. Is that something that you're able to wakes you up in the morning and say like, hey, I can't wait to get into my spreadsheets and I can't wait to get into my magazines to pick out all this kind of stuff? Or is it kind of like hitting the snooze alarm and okay, fine, I'll dive into wedding planning? I know that's probably a somewhat personal question and changes day to day, but is that something that you look forward to, or is that kind of outside of your natural wheelhouse and it's a necessary component to a beautiful change in life?
So anybody that knows me around here knows that I am not a spreadsheet person. I
Good.
use them sometimes when I have to. I do have a spreadsheet for planning my wedding, but I am not like an organized sit down and like, oh yeah, I just love to fill in those boxes in that spreadsheet. But I do find it fun because I'm a creative person, so all the
Mm.
creative parts of planning are kind of fun for me. So I would say I'm a
Gotcha.
little bit of both.
A little bit of both. That's fair. I don't doubt that you'll have one of the most picturesque weddings that are out there, just with your insight into what is appealing and aesthetic and whatnot. And so if I dare ask a little bit more, and I apologize if it's too much, but say you got a day off and you're meeting the fiance somewhere. What is the go to, or is it a sit in a coffee shop and just chat and catch up? Is it a go for a walk? Is it a something else entirely? What does good quality downtime look like?
Um, we are pretty simple people. We are not go out and do fancy things. So I would say it would probably just be chatting, going for a walk,
Nice.
kind of hanging out, playing games.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I appreciate those couples that have these epic whatever they're go-karting every Friday night and they're doing this and that. That's never really been me. And so totally fair. Last question for you then, Carissa. So you are obviously an expert with regards to the realm of social media. You are contributing in so many ways with regards to um, our events, and what I know that you even have a plan, a hand in planning and advertising for our events. If you were to try to encapsulate it, what excites you the most about the trajectory of CCBR? What excites you about where we're going, and with having your finger in so many different aspects of what the organization is up to? What excites you?
Yeah, so a lot, I would say. I joined staff about 2 years ago. It might even be 2 years ago today. I think it might be 2 years ago today. I joined staff with CCBR, and I think what excites me most is just the growth. that I have seen in that time and the growth that I see happening in our future. It's been really exciting. When I first joined staff, I was one of 5 people who regularly worked out of the Mississauga office. And since then, our team has about doubled in size. Um, and like that's our full-time staff team. Our internships have gotten very big. I think when I interned, there was 12 of us. This past summer, we had 32 interns in the GTA at the peak of the summer. And our programs, all the craft courses and boot camps and all those things that we've run have just been really big and lots of people getting excited. Our volunteer groups have grown, and I've just seen so much growth in all of those areas, and it makes me really excited for the future of getting, because the more people who get involved, the more people get involved from there because they tell their friends and family. And we've seen that a lot in the past 2 years. It's been really exciting to see the amount of minds that have changed because of that, and more babies being saved. So yeah, very exciting time.
Absolutely. The growth is absolutely wild, and in many ways doesn't seem like it's slowing up at all. I think at last count we had 88 or 90 people apply for our Florida AAP mission trip coming up in February,
Yeah,
which is absolutely wonderful.
yeah.
And hopefully sets the foundation for a really strong internship coming up this coming year as well. And so yeah, thank you a ton, Karissa, for joining me. It was super cool to chat with you at the retreat and talk podcasting as well. I'll have to get you on again to talk about podcasting in general, because you may have slipped the idea to me that one day you would like to start your own podcast. And so we'll have to dive into that a little bit further. But yeah, thanks a ton for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. All right, folks, this is Karissa. She is wonderful. She runs our social media. Say hi to her on social media. Be those people that actually send positive and happy messages to our social media accounts, because I'm sure that there are some days that Karissa could very much appreciate a pick me up. And so do that. Appreciate the work that she's doing on that. And also check on our merch. We're going to put the merch link in the show notes below, because Karissa had a very instrumental hand in developing our merch and now marketing our merch. And so definitely check that out. And may God bless you abundantly wherever you're at, however many hours are left in your day.